Is Jimbo Fisher a bad culture hire? His last days at Florida State were tumultuous, and now at A&M there are players quitting, getting suspended, talks of massive amounts of an exodus. I misread that one. A mass exodus in the transfer portal after the season, not to mention no bowl game. From Wenatchee, Washington. Culture's a funny word, Xavier. I'm going to make a little generic kind of statement here because I really up front want to tell you I don't think a whole lot of people know the internal workings of the A&M program. And most people who know the internal workings are given that access in exchange for keeping their mouth shut. There are exceptions. There are some very plugged-in people around A&M athletics, and I'm not suggesting otherwise. I'm just saying we've entered that time of year where you get generic consensus all over the place. And what I mean by generic consensus, you hear it in recruiting all the time. Oh, so-and-so was bought and paid for. Really? How do you know? Oh, you can tell. How do you know, though? Well, I mean, look at the details around his recruitment, but how do you know? And what happens is one person says something, then 3 people say something, then 100 people say something, and things just get accepted as truth, absent any real details or facts. Now, sometimes they happen to be true. Sometimes it is, what word do we want to use here? I think we know what word we want to use here. At least it is greatly exaggerated, let's put it that way, to be safe. And so, yeah, I think there are a lot of problems around the A&M program. A culture problem. Jimbo Fisher being a culture problem. No, I'm not ready to say that. He has an antiquated offense problem, more so than anything there. And that has poisoned the well with the specific way they have chosen to recruit at Texas A&M with this last class. Because as we talked about 2 weeks ago, if you dive into the NIL recruiting approach, you're totally free to do so. But you do so, or at least you better do so, under the notion that you're going to have to operate a little bit different way than what a classical recruiting approach would have you operating under. In the classical recruiting approach, you go recruit kids, heads up against other programs, and the ones who want to come to your program, they come to your program, and then they either start as freshmen if they're superstars, or they redshirt, but I mean, largely they're there because they want to be there because the program attracted them. In the NIL age, money attracts a lot of kids. And it just so happens that Texas A&M is where they play in this case, but they're not attached as much as maybe a kid would have been a generation ago. This is the part where someone's going to take this out of context and say kids shouldn't be paid, according to JP. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. Quite the opposite. But what I am saying is if you traffic in it as heavy as A&M has chosen to do, which again is well within their right to do, you're going to have to understand there is an immediate return that is expected from a lot of those freshmen. Here's the bad part. Even if they haven't earned it. What about that? Now you can look at that and say, shame on that kid. He needs to sit over in the corner and take his medicine. Doesn't work. Doesn't work. When you paid the kid to come there, doesn't work. Because the kid can go anywhere and get paid to play football. And all of those freshmen have the same thing in common. They have not burned their penalty-free transfer yet. So they came in your program. This is the case everywhere. A&M's just the one I'm talking about. They come in your program, and whereas you used to shut the door behind them and deadbolt it, you have no access to the door at all anymore, period. And they leave the door wide open, sometimes leave 1 foot out the door, and they say, let me see if I like it in here, a.k.a. my true freshman season. And if I don't like it, a.k.a. if I don't play, then I'm out. Oh, I'm taking the money with me, by the way. That's the culture problem. Now, if you want to call that a culture problem, you can define it however you want to. That's just the reality of the situation, because I have a strong suspicion that if they would have won games this year because they were running a better offensive system, then they would have had less disgruntled players, which would have led to less of the off-field drama and turmoil. Some of it you've heard about, a lot of it you hadn't heard about. And therefore, I wouldn't be fielding questions about whether or not they have a culture problem out there. But that's not the way it panned out. Therefore, this is what we're talking about with Jimbo Fisher. The biggest question around there, at least to me, it's not culture. That's a factor, but it's not culture nearly as much as what's he going to do with his offense? What's he going to do with offensive coordinator? I think you'd be shocked at what a 10-win season would do for culture around College Station, Texas. Shocked Guys, thanks for watching Late Kick. Make sure and leave a comment. I love interacting with you. But most of all, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. That's how we keep all of this free.